1 and 2, you guys are just finding the slope of the line through 2 points. So if they give you 2 ordered pairs, you guys are going to use the slope formula that I had written on the board. But it is subtracting the 2 y values on top and subtracting the 2 x values on the bottom. Okay. I tend to always start with my second y value and subtract the first from it, just because, you know, the formula says y2 minus y1, so that's just how I've always done it. You could actually go like you guys could do -16 minus -20, but if you go this way on top, you have to go that way on the bottom. So I always do the second minus the first, the second minus the first, but you are allowed to do the first minus the second and the first minus the second. The only thing it ends up doing is it'll make your signs opposite of mine. So like if I had a negative up top and a positive on the bottom, you would have a positive up top and a negative on the bottom. That's the only thing that's going to change. So I took -20, so this minus this, so that minus sign right there has to be there. Sometimes there will be minus a negative, and you cannot leave off this negative sign just because there's a minus there. Like you have to have them both. And then on the bottom, I would do the 7 minus 19. So what did you guys get up top? You left off a negative sign. It should be -4. And then on the bottom, -12. Yeah, if you guys just write this out on paper, just then type it into the calculator. So these 2 minus signs, like those are always going to be there. I don't want you to ever change that. And then just stick the 2 numbers on either side of the minus sign. Now, if you get 2 negatives, what is it going to turn into? A positive. And then if you don't know how to reduce 4/12, use the ABC button on your calculator. So you would just type in, like you can't type in the signs with it. The calculator doesn't understand when you put a negative on the bottom. So I just say, okay, we know 2 negatives are going to make a positive answer. So all you need to do is type in 4ABC12. 1/3. Yep. 1/3. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on problem number 2. Obviously, they're just different numbers here. So it'd be 19 minus 20 on top. And then when you set up the bottom, it's -5 minus, and then now you have a -12. So on the bottom, if you left off this second minus sign or that negative sign, your bottom number will be wrong. You've got to have both. 19 minus 20 on top would be -1. -5 minus -12 actually turns into +7. Okay? Now, anytime you have a fraction that ends with a 1 on top, it can't be made any smaller. So this is as small as it gets. You don't have to reduce. You just need to double check and make sure, is this supposed to be positive or negative? Well, if there's only one negative sign, it's going to stay negative. Yep. You would have ended up with +1 and -7. And you know I never write negatives on the bottom. So I would have, if I had ended with 1 over -7, I would have just moved that negative sign up top. But I mean, technically it would still be a right answer. Okay? All right, so your quiz tomorrow will start with some problems like this. They may or may not reduce. You just have to make sure you always check for reducing. And then I think the way this is set up is mostly how it's set up on your quiz. Like the order of the problems, you'll have some slope, and then we'll do some graphing where it's probably going to start in slope-intercept form. So like this one is slope-intercept form. This is just x equals a constant. These are ready to be graphed. We don't have to do any work. We just have to start plotting our points. And then it'll move into like standard form where you guys actually have to move some things around. Okay, so for slope-intercept form, remember your starting point is the constant. So the b value is 5. That's the one you're always going to plot first. And we plot it on which axis? The y, because it starts with y. So I would put my first point at the +5 on the y-axis. And then identify your slope. You got to stop putting it on the x-axis. I know that's what you did, isn't it? This is the only one right here. See this one? This one that starts with x equals, that is the only one you plot on the x-axis. All the others are on the y. Okay, our slope is 2, and because it's a whole number, you want to stick a 1 underneath it. So if we have a positive slope, where are we supposed to go? Up and right. It's either UR or DR, up, right, down, right. Positives upright, negatives down, right. Okay? Now, looking at the picture, if I try to start here and count up 2, I can't. So since I don't have room to do this, what do I have to do instead? Down left. You have to switch both directions. Okay, so I'm going to start here and I'm going to count down 2, left 1, and then just keep going until you run out of room. So you should end up, the very last point is at -5, -5. So what, 6 points total that you can fit? Use your ruler, connect your points, put arrows on the end, extend your line from edge to edge, and then put arrows. And I'm going to suggest to you, because if you guys knew that you didn't have room to do upright, a lot of times people switch it to down, but then they forget to switch right to left. And if you don't do that, what's going to happen is your line would have been going this way, which is a negative slope. And if our slope is positive, it should always be going uphill. So that is just one way to check yourself at the end to make sure your lines actually go in the right direction. If it's a positive slope, it should be going uphill. Negative slope would be going downhill. Okay? Is everybody okay with number 3? All right, then number 4, this is x equals a constant. So 2 things to remember. This is definitely something I would write on my page of notes. Like if I was the one taking the quiz tomorrow, I would write that if you have an equation that says x equals a constant, it should be a vertical line when you're done, and I would say plot on x-axis, because this is the only time you guys will plot your first point on the x. Yep, and I think there's one on the next page. There's a y equals somewhere. X equals 1. Put your point here at the 1, and then there's no reason to plot any more points. We already know it's supposed to be vertical, and you have a grid line to follow. So you just put your ruler down and draw your vertical line through that point. And then as soon as you guys have that checked and that one finished, go ahead and turn the page. And we'll do some more graphing. Okay, then this would be the next thing I would probably write on my page of notes for your quiz tomorrow. If it is just y equals a constant, so there's no x term, it will be a horizontal line, and you're going to plot on the y-axis. Majority of the time you are plotting on the y-axis to start with. Oh, there's 2 of them like that. Those are easy, 5 and 7. Yeah, so on the y-axis, put your first point at -1. And then we know it's supposed to be horizontal. So put your ruler down and then just follow that grid line that goes straight across. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead down to number 7 and do that one real quick because it's just like that one. So on number 7, it's y equals +1. So just put your starting point at the +1 and go across. Okay. Now 6 and 8 are in what form? Standard form. So when they're in standard form, you guys are going to have to rewrite them. So standard form is what we've been given, and we're going to rewrite it in slope-intercept form, which at most will only take 2 steps. Sometimes it only takes 1. Like I'm going to tell you right now, this one, there is only 1 step to get this in slope-intercept form because y does not have a number in front of it and it's positive. So as soon as I move my x term, y is already going to be by itself, and that's our goal. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this under the graph so that I have some room to show you guys how to do this. Anytime you have to move x to the other side, it's helpful if there's a number in front of it. So when there's not a number, just stick a 1 there. And how do I move a 1x? Subtract it. So you want to put minus 1x on both sides of the equation. We're going to bring down y equals, and now remember, these two do not combine. I don't want to see you guys type into your calculator -5 minus 1. One of them has an x, the other one doesn't. So what I typically do, I write my x term first, so -1x, and then I write my constant second. Is there a number in front of y? Technically, it's a positive 1, but if you guys divide something by 1, does it change? No. So you don't have to do your division step here. As long as y is completely by itself, you're done. So this is one of those rare times when all you have to do is move the x term and then you're finished, because I can look at this and say, here's my starting point, the -5 is my y-intercept, and my slope is -1. So let me do this. This right here is the b value, so that's your starting point. And then I am going to stick a 1 under that -1 because whenever we have slope, we like there to be a top and a bottom, because you have to know, like, this is your rise, this is your run. So if it's negative, where should we go? Down and right. Down and right. So I'm going to put my first point at -5 on the y-axis. And then from there, we are supposed to go down 1, right 1. So down 1, right 1, new dot. And I'm already out of room. So we're going to switch. We're going to go back to our starting point and go up 1, left 1. And you keep doing that. Anytime you have a slope of +1 or -1, you're going to have lots of points that fit. Just keep going up and left. Problem number 8. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so we're going from standard to slope-intercept. Okay, that's our goal here. So I'm going to take this equation, I'm going to write it under the graph because I need some room. This one will take me 2 steps. So 1x plus 4y equals 4. What term do I move first? The x term. So if it's a 1x, we are just subtracting 1x. So this time, instead of just bringing down y, it now says 4y. So we put 4y equals, and then these two again do not combine, so you should not be doing 4 minus 1 to get 3. We're just going to keep them separated. Okay, so -1x, I go ahead and write down first. And then that 4 is a positive 4, so you should write +4. It's a positive. Okay, now this one, there is a number in front of y that we have to get rid of. And when they're side by side, they have multiplied, so we divide. You guys want to do this. You want to put a fraction bar under every term. So there are there are 3 terms that need to be divided by 4. Y equals, okay, here's our slope. First, look at your signs. If one's negative and one's positive, it will stay negative. And then 1/4 doesn't reduce. When you have a 1 as your numerator, it cannot be any smaller than that. So we're going to leave this as 1/4 x. Put that x either up top or next to the fraction bar, not down by the 4. Okay? And then you want to look right here. This part you can actually type in as division. So what's 4 divided by 4? +1. And now you have that equation in slope-intercept form. Some days it's rough, some days it's fine. All right, so if you guys take a look right here, here's my starting point, right? +1. And again, that's on the y-axis. That's where we typically put it. Okay, so the +1 is right here. You guys can't see that, can you? There it is, +1. And then our slope was -1/4. So where are we supposed to go with negative slopes? Down, right. So we are going to start at that 1, and I'll move this up in just a second, and then we're going to count down 1, right 4, and we're going to keep doing that until we run out of room. So I would go down 1, right 4, and I'm already out of room, because I could go down 1 more, but I couldn't go right 4 more. So then I'm going to switch. I'm going to go back to my starting point, and I'm going to go up and left, and we can do that one more time. So up 1, left 4. And those are the only points that fit. What's the matter? Did you go down and left instead of down and right? So maybe something else you guys might find helpful to write on your page of notes tomorrow, or tonight, for your quiz tomorrow. Positive slope is up right, and negative slope is down right. Remember, we don't ever use the direction left unless you can't keep going up and right. Then you'd have to go down and left. And if you run out of room going down and right, then you'd have to go up and left. You just have to make sure you switch both directions, okay? But this is typically all I ask you guys to remember, because why remember 4 options if you can just remember 2? It's just easier this way. Okay? So again, I would probably, for all your graphing, I would probably put this on a page of notes. I would probably put y equals a constant is horizontal, x equals a constant is vertical. And then me personally, I think it's important for you guys to like show an example of how to turn standard form into slope-intercept form. Because you have to remember, I'm not going to be sitting there asking you guys these questions tomorrow while you're taking your quiz. You have to do it on your own. So it'll probably help if you guys have those steps written out so you can actually see it and see what you did on the review. Okay? Any questions on this graphing page before we flip it over? Cool. Okay, go ahead and flip it over. We didn't really do anything like number 9, but it's pretty simple. So I threw this on here because there is one like it on your quiz. Couple things. I would make sure you go through and read this. So it said a teacher kept track of how many pencils were left in her jar after allowing students to borrow them during class. Below is a graph of how many pencils are left in her jar after the first week of school. Despite the slope despite, I don't know why I said that. Describe the slope. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about our slope. Then they want you to tell me what the x-intercept is and what the y-intercept is. And it says from the information given on the graph and from the context, that doesn't even make sense, from the context of the story problem. Normally there would be something written here and here. So I'm going to put on the y, if you guys could write that in there. Go ahead and write number of pencils. That's probably the number of pencils she started with. And then these down here must be like the number of days based on what the word problem said. Okay, so the first thing I want to know is let's describe our slope. Is that slope positive, negative, 0, or undefined? Negative. It is negative. How do we know it's negative? It's going downhill. And I mean, that makes sense, you guys. They told you in the story problem that she's losing. Well, actually, I don't think it actually said she's losing, but you can tell that she started with 12, and by day 4, they're gone. Okay, so then let's identify what the x-intercept is. X-intercept will always have a 0 second. I'm going to write something with that too, so leave a little bit of space. And then your y-intercept will always start with 0. So you need to make sure that you know that. When you're looking for x, y is 0. When you're looking for y, x is 0. So on our x-axis, where does it cross? 4. Okay, so let's describe what that means. Like, the 4 is 4 days. So basically what we could say there is her pencils only last 4 days, right? Because at 4 days, aren't they all gone? All pencils are gone after 4 days. Yeah, I would just write that in there because on your quiz, you're going to have a similar graph. They're going to ask you for all these pieces, and they're also going to ask you to describe, like, what it means. I don't think it's pencils and days, but same concept. And then the y-intercept up here is at 12. That's where it crosses the y-axis. So what does that 12 represent? Okay, so the 12 is the number of pencils she started with.
What did she expect? I think 12 pencils.
For people not to steal them. Because we buy them with our own money.
But it's 12 pencils. We got like 13?
I don't know. All right. So now down at the bottom, we are going to find x and y intercepts just like we did yesterday. Okay? I will say that number 10 is the harder one because when we're looking for x and y intercepts, remember I showed you that shortcut? I'm going to actually start with number 11. I showed you the shortcut. If we are looking for the x-intercept, which term do I cover up with my finger? Look, cover up the y term. What does that equation say? 4x equals negative 24. So you guys just write that down. 4x equals negative 24, and then solve it. We just divide by 4. So x equals negative 6, and I am going to ask you to write that as an ordered pair. So if x is negative 6, that goes first, 0 is automatically second. Then we're going to do the same shortcut for the y. The only difference is if we're looking for y, which one do I cover up? Cover up the x. Okay, so if that's a plus sign in front of the 8, that's just positive. You guys don't have to bring that plus sign down. You're just going to write 8y equals negative 24. And then divide by the 8. So y equals negative 3. And as an ordered pair, the y value always goes second, and you put the 0 first.
I changed it to standard form, and I checked it that way. You can still do that, right?
Mm-hmm. You changed it to slope-intercept form.
Oh, well, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you change it to slope-intercept form, it gives you your y. You still are going to have to find your x. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
I
you're
found my
you're
line.
fine if you do it that way.
I just
yeah.
don't like to do too much math.
All right, so I like this one just because to me, this one is the easier form because you can just use that little shortcut. You don't really have to plug in the number 0 anywhere. Well, using the shortcut just means we plugged in 0. But this one over here, the y-intercept is actually given to you. So I'm going to go ahead and identify my y-intercept. This one has been given because when it's in slope-intercept form, remember this is our slope right here, that 3, but this plus 9, that is your y-intercept. So all you guys have to do down here is put y equals 9 and then write it as an ordered pair. 9 would go second, 0 is automatically first. So that one's given. That one, nobody should miss. You don't even have to do any kind of computation for that. It is straightforward. Now the x is a little bit more difficult because it isn't given to you. You do have to find it, and you can't use that shortcut by just covering up the letter y. Because if I cover up y, all that says is 3x plus 9 equals blank. So we have to put a number there. We put a 0 there. If there's nothing there, you put a 0. Remember when we're looking for x, y is 0 anyway? So when we're finding the x, you guys are going to put a 0 for y, and then just copy the right side down as is, so you're leaving x in the equation. And that's a two-step equation you have to solve. What do I move first? The 9. We subtract 9 from both sides. You always move your constant first. So 3x equals negative 9. And then divide by 3. 3. Oh, you were giving me the answer. Okay. So you plug in 0, solve that two-step equation, and then write it as an ordered pair. So negative 3 would go first, 0 would go second. Now, both of those problems actually only require 2 steps, because think about it. This one over here, when I did my shortcut, it was a one-step equation and another one-step equation. So altogether, I did 2 steps total. Over here, this was a 2-step equation, but then I didn't have to do any steps down here. So, I mean, I still have to do the same amount of work for each problem, essentially, but this one is just set up a little bit easier to use the shortcut. This one over here, you actually have to physically plug in that number 0 and solve. Questions on your intercepts? So on your page of notes, those two would be great examples because I can guarantee that on your quiz tomorrow, One of them will be in standard form and you can just do the shortcut. And then one of them is going to be in slope-intercept form where you will have to plug in a 0 and solve. You will have one of each of those. So, two really good examples to throw on your page of notes. And I actually on the back just threw on some extra standard form problems because these are the ones that I think people tend to miss most often. And it's not like there's just one of them on your quiz. I think there's a couple of them on there. So I wanted to walk through those steps again just to make sure we all understand how to do it. So on number 13, I'm going to bring that under. So I would write that as 7x minus 1y equals 3. Remember, always stick a number in front of the letter if it's not there, like stick the 1 there. Okay, so step 1, what do I move? Subtract 7x. Make sure you guys are actually doing this, please. This is how you earn your credit every day in here, is by filling them in. So on the right side, put your x term first, negative 7x, and then put your constant, which is a positive 3, second. And now, if this had been a positive 1, you would not have to do your division, because dividing by positive 1 does not change anything. However, that is a negative 1. And dividing by negative 1 does change the sign. It doesn't change the number, but it changes the sign. So these two cancel. You end up with y equals 2 negatives will turn into a positive 7x. And then 1 positive and 1 negative is negative, so it's minus 3. So you end up with y equals 7x minus 3. Okay, so out of this equation, which one is my slope?
You talking about 7x?
7. My slope is 7 because it's attached to x. We need a numerator and a denominator, so I'm going to stick a 1 underneath it. That is a positive slope, so that will be up and right once we start graphing this. My y-intercept is negative 3. That is your starting point on the y-axis. So you guys should all be putting your first point at negative 3 on the y. So down here. And I can guarantee if our slope is that big, you're only going to be able to plot one other point. If we have to go up 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it takes you to the 4 and then go right 1. Obviously, you cannot go up 7 again, and even if you try to go down to the bottom, you can't go down 7. So on occasion, you will only get 2 points that fit, and then that is the only time that I will accept only 2 points. Otherwise, I would expect to see every single point that fits. You guys can handle that. Doesn't take very long to plot them all. Two more, and then we'll be done for the day. Well, we'll be done with second period. We still have a whole afternoon to go. Okay, number 14. Just go ahead and copy that equation down under the graph so we've got room. Move x. So it's positive 5x, so we're going to subtract 5x. So positive 2y equals Put your x term first. So negative 5x. Constant second, that's a positive 2, so put a plus sign in front of it. And go through and divide everything by what? Divide everything by 2.
Nothing reduces and everything is except for group slope.
Okay, this slope right here, it's going to stay the same. You've got one negative sign, so it's going to stay negative, and 5 and 2 have nothing in common except for 1, and that wouldn't change it anyway. So negative 5 halves x. And then when you look at your y-intercept over here, you just do the division. 2 divided by 2, positive 1. So negative 5 halves x plus 1. Slope is negative 5 halves. Negative 5 over 2, which means down and right. And then my y-intercept is positive 1, and that's the one you plot first. So put your starting point at positive 1, and then I'm going to count down 5, right 2 for my first point. Well, my second point, technically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. So go down to the negative 4 and then right 2. I'm out of room. So then you want to just check. You want to go back to this point and see if you can go up 5, which we can, right? Up 5 puts me up there at the 6, and then instead of going right, go left 2. So go up to the 6, go left 2, put your last dot, and then connect them. And I know I said this yesterday, but your standard form problems where you have to graph, those are going to be at least 4 points apiece, because you've got to do the 2 steps here to switch it to slope-intercept form, and then you have to graph it. So there'll be at least 4 points. Your graphs that, if they give it to you in slope-intercept form, those tend to just be 2 points because they give you everything you need. And then the last one, number 15. Three x minus 4y equals 8. Move 3x. Okay, now this 4y is negative, so make sure you bring down that negative sign with it. And then negative 3x first, positive 8 second. Go through and divide everything by negative 4. So we have y equals, then for your slope, 3 and 4 don't have anything in common, so 3/4 will stay 3/4. The only thing you have to worry about are their signs. If there are 2 negatives, it's going to become positive. So we would just write 3/4 x, and then 8 divided by negative 4, negative 2. So you'd want to write it as like minus 2. What? Oh. Okay, well, I'm not there yet. My slope is 3/4, so since it's positive, I should go up and right. And then I will plot my first point at the negative 2 on the y-axis. So I'm going to count up 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, right 4. I could go up 3 again, but I can't go right 4 more. So then go back to your starting point and see if you can go down and left. Down 3 to the negative 5, left 4. So you've got 3 points that fit. And then that's the last problem on your review.